we received a letter from my daughter Kayla at camp saying that she would be a talking donkey in her play. And I thought maybe they were doing this Parsha. It wasn't even Shrek, actually. She was a talking donkey in the Hebrew version of Encanto. I think, when you're at camp, you make up parts for everybody. But I bring that up when thinking of this Parsha because it acknowledges how odd Parashat Balak is, that we are even introduced to the notion of a talking animal who can see the angels of God all around us. This talking donkey sees what Bilam is unable to see. Bilam, who is hired by King Balak to curse the people of Israel, is so focused on that wickedness that he has set out, that task that he has set out for, that he cannot see God's angels in his midst. And it takes a donkey, an aton in Torah, literally the animal that is used throughout literature to resemble ignorance, grumpiness, stupidity. It takes this simple creature to remind this magician of sorts to look at the Kedusha, to look at the holiness that was literally standing right in front of him that he could not see. And so, in this Parsha, we also see time and time again Bilam going to the Israelites and instead of cursing them, offering words of blessing. Most famously, we have the words, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. He says, how lovely are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, your sanctuaries, people of Israel. He tells Balak he cannot control what he says. God can only control the words that comes out of his mouth. And those are words that we say. If you open up the beginning of our tefillot, we say those words before Birkot HaShachar. They become a part of our liturgy as if magically by saying those words, we create space. We turn space into a holy space. We recognize that God is there. Or is it that by saying those words, we create holy space? Or we, in some ways, acknowledge that we too are like this donkey. We need to remind each other that God is in this place, and we do not know it. That all space has the potential to be holy space, sacred space, if only we're willing to remove those blinders and see the beauty, to see the good in one another. Or Meforshim, our rabbis try to interpret what it means, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov. Right? What is so great about these tents of this encampment of the people of Israel? Some suggest that all the doors of these tents were always open. That it's a statement of the Haknasat Orchim of the Jewish people, always welcoming strangers into their homes. Others suggest actually the complete opposite, that their windows face opposite each other, that it was a sign of sniyut, of the modesty of the Jewish people, lest they peek in to each other's homes and try to see what is happening in other people's private lives. I'm less concerned about what it means and more focused instead on the blessing itself. That time and time again, somebody was set out to be wicked, set out to curse, and returned with blessing. It was quite a week in the world of American politics. It seems every week is. I may be reminding some of you how young I am. I don't remember when Reagan was shot. Told you. I'll remind you how young I am. And I wasn't alive when Bobby Kennedy was shot or when JFK was shot, and so hearing of a former president and a presidential candidate be shot is a stark reminder of where we are in society. And what do we do with the fact when it's somebody who says vile and bigoted things that I often think are antithetical to my faith? That doesn't excuse such an act. And I would think, is this where we are as a society, that we turn to violence, political leaders? But in fact, as I just said, in every generation, no, this is actually what happens. That somebody turns to violence with assassination attempt. So what does that mean for us as humanity then, that this is who we are, who we've become, or maybe, as history shows us, who we've always been? Rabbi Avraham Weinberg of Slonim Rebbe, the Hasidic Rabbi who wrote Yesod HaAvodah, says in his commentary that what makes Bilam stand out is that he was so quick to judge others. That's why Balak chose him to curse the Israelites. It's because he was so quick to judge another person. But it was only once he encountered the encampment of the Israelites that he was taught the act of cheshbon hanefesh. That actually, what did the Israelites introduce him to? The act of self-reflection. The act of looking internally. And only when he did that, this Hasidic rabbi says, is when he blessed the other instead of cursed them. Right, so our Rashi says that what does the Israelites teach everybody? Teaches everybody about modesty, teaches everybody about achnas harachim. Rabbi Avraham of Slonim says, what did the Israelites teach everybody? It's the act of cheshbon hanefesh, the act of looking internally before we're quick to judge another person. That we judge ourselves before we judge others. And when he finally did that, that's when his curses turned into blessings. I don't have an answer to the world that we live in. I don't know if any of us do. Don't have an answer to increasing political violence in this country. We also can't talk about an assassination attempt on a political leader if we're not willing to talk about school shootings, or shootings in public spheres, and the role of gun violence that has destroyed us as a society, that's become an egel zahav, a golden calf. And we can only focus on what's going on here as if we're living in a bubble, not focus on where our hearts constantly are, Israel or in other parts of the world. But we can focus on our own actions. And I think that that's ultimately what Bilam is teaching us. He says he cannot control the words that comes out of his mouth, that only God can. An odd thing to say, when in fact we're taught that that is the only thing that we can control. What we say, what we do, how we act. Maybe we can't control our thoughts, but we can control our actions. And he's actually saying the opposite, that his words are God's words. He can't control them. But Hasidic Rabbi teaches us that when he looks internally, his words change, his thoughts change, and his curses become blessings. Kedushat Levi puts it even further. He acknowledges that when things aren't going in the right direction, we chart a new path, that we can't move forward without awareness. Ultimately, what Bilam learns to do, regardless of the evil intentions of King Balak, is what we strive to do as humanity. What seems impossible these days in a world where we don't sit down with those who we may be in disagreement with, a world where we turn to violence towards one another. But if we chart that new path, as Kedushat Levi says, our curses turn into blessings. That's what Bilam teaches us. And I would argue that's why the words of the evil magician who was set out to curse the people of Israel becomes a part of our liturgy. Not because of what the words are, not because of what they even mean. What does it mean, our rabbis say, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov? But rather, what led to those words in the first place. That they represent a turn in ourselves from curse to blessing. To before we look out at others, we look internally at who we are, who we strive to be, and how we talk to one another. And only then do we see actually how lovely our sanctuaries, our dwelling places can be when we curse less and bless more. Shabbat Shalom.